Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. Before we get started, I just wanted to say Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a safe, happy, and healthy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So by the title of today's video, you can tell that we're going to go over my January TBR. And to be honest, y'all, I feel like I'm not really starting off the year with a bang. I feel like this TBR is a little bit meh in comparison to other TBRs that I've set or talked about. I'm still excited to read these books, but it's definitely a mixed bag compared to my other reading months because I have buddy reads and just content priorities and things like that. The first book that I have here, I'm just going to get it out of the way because I've talked about it so many times in so many of my other videos, but the book that I'm referring to is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. So like I said, I'm not going to go into any detail about this. I've already talked about it multiple times. Just know that this book is getting read this month and you guys will be getting a reading vlog. So definitely make sure you subscribe and turn on those post notifications so that way you're notified when I do upload this reading vlog. The next book that I have here is another book that I'm not going to spend really any time talking about because I've talked about it in so many of my videos in December, but the book that I'm referring to is Take the Lead by Alexis Daria. So like I said, not going to get into the full details about this book. Just make sure you check out my other video. This is a book that I am prioritizing in January and that I definitely need to read because this is an arc and this does publish on February 14th. So I want to make sure that I read this and get my review up in time. But just know, really excited for this one. And the next book that I have here is All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. So this is a thriller and Ashley Flowers is actually the co-host for the famous true crime podcast known as Crime Junkies, and she decided to write her own thriller. So I'm really excited about this. So the only things that I know about this story is that it follows a woman named Margaret, and Margaret is from this small town, and when she was growing up in this town, another young girl, I think around her age, ended up going missing. There was this huge search party for this young girl, but she was murdered and her body was discovered in a ditch and the case went cold. And so Margaret ends up leaving her hometown to, I think, attend college and like live life and things like that, but then she decides to return because this case has really been bothering her. She wants to figure out what really happened to this young girl and who killed her. But as Margaret starts getting closer and closer to the truth, she ends up putting a target on her back, and then I'm assuming the killer or killers are going to go after her. I haven't seen too many reviews on this book recently. The last few reviews that I've seen were on Bookstagram and they were months ago, but the reviews that I did see were positive and I think they were all like 4 stars and above, so that's really good. I have seen people say that the case in here is very reminiscent or at least inspired by the JonBenet Ramsey case. So I am interested to see how Ashley Flowers handles that and tackles that in here. Hopefully it's done respectfully, of course. I'm really excited to dive into this one because I have been listening to Crime Junkies for as long as I could remember. When I really first started to get into podcasts, that was the one podcast that made me a true like podcast fan. And so I'm really interested to see if all of the research and content and just all of the macabre and dark things that Ashley Flowers is exposed to on a day-to-day basis because of the Crime Junkies podcast really helped guide her writing this thriller, and more specifically writing a good thriller. So again, really curious to see how this is all going to unfold. The next book that I have here is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. So this has been on my TBR and my TBR cart for so long, and I'm really hoping that I can get to it in January because I have not read a Riley Sager book since I read Survive the Night a year or 2 ago, which is so odd because I am one of the few that actually enjoyed Survive the Night. I did not like the ending, but I did like Survive the Night overall, and for some reason I've just been very hesitant on picking up more of his books. I don't know why, because I feel like if you like Survive the Night, then you'll probably like pretty much anything he's ever written, because I know that that book is probably his most unserious out of like all of his other books, at least the ending. But I don't know, guys, I've just been very hesitant on picking up more of his books. I don't know why. I have this book as well as The House Across the Lake. I know that's another book that has a lot of polarizing views, but regardless, I need to read some more Riley Sager and get to this book hopefully before his new release. But this story follows a woman named Jules, and Jules is actually looking for a job and she ends up finding one to apply to. I'm pretty sure in like the newspaper. She ends up becoming an apartment sitter for this very famous and exclusive and secretive apartment known as the Bartholomew. So when she gets there and meets the tenant has very strict rules for her. I'm not sure what all of the rules are, but I think one of them is that she is not allowed to talk to any of the residents in the Bartholomew for some reason, but she isn't bothered by this. And so she's going through her shift, things are going well, until she ends up, I think, actually striking up a conversation with someone in the Bartholomew, and Jules is having a good time with this person, and somehow later on in the story, this person that Jules was talking to ends up going missing, and then I think other sinister shit starts happening too. I'm really looking forward to diving into this one and finally being able to cross another Riley Sager book off of my list, hopefully. I know that this is one of his more popular books, so I really hope I enjoy this one just as much as I did Survive the Night. And the next book that I have here is A Chance at Love by Beverly Jenkins. So I recently just hauled this, and I will leave that haul linked up above in the card somewhere. But I'm so excited that I have this book in my possession now. I actually just read another Beverly Jenkins book in December. The female MC in this story actually appears in that story, and that's where she got her start. And once I read about her in Always and Forever, I fell in love with her character, and I couldn't wait to see how her storyline would end up. And so I'm really happy that I have this. The story follows a woman named Lorelai. Lorelai is a very unconventional woman, I guess you can say, especially for this time period. She is a gambler, and she also just has had a lot of different life experiences that many women during this time period did not have. And so unfortunately, she is shunned and looked down upon by a lot of women and just people in general in society. But Lorelai doesn't really care. She's always been very headstrong and doesn't really care what people think about her. So she ends up traveling to Kansas because she's actually on her way to go to California to start a new life, but she ends up in Kansas for the time being. And Lorelai ends up meeting these two little girls who are technically orphaned, but they do, I think, live with like their uncle or something like that. And these little girls really want Lorelai to be their mother, and their uncle also would love Lorelai's help in just taking care of them. And so she is really hesitant about this because she does have plans to go to California and she doesn't really want to get attached, but she ends up taking on this role and basically becoming a nanny of sorts for these little girls. One thing leads to another, and her and Jake obviously end up falling in love along the way. So this just sounds like this is going to be a very heartwarming and charming story. I cannot wait to see how this all unfolds, and I really like Lorelai's character in Always and Forever, like I said, so I am really happy that she's going to get her happily ever after because she deserves it. The last couple of books that I would like to read for January, I actually don't have the physical copies of for yet, so I will pop up a picture on the screen here. But the next book that I would like to read is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. So this is actually the first book in the All Kingsmen duology, and this is a mafia romance, and I think this is Kennedy Ryan's like only mafia romance. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure this is her only mafia romance. Maybe. So I'm actually just going to read the synopsis because it is pretty short, but Kennedy Ryan's synopsises I feel like for the most part are pretty vague. But right here it says, raised to rule, bred to lead, and weaned on a diet of ruthless ambition. In a world of haves and have-nots, my family has it all, and I want nothing to do with it. My path takes me far from home and paints me as the black sheep. At odds with my father, I'm determined to build my own empire. I have rules, but Lennox Hunter is the exception to every one of them. From the moment we meet, something sparks between us. But my family stole from hers, and my father is the man she hates most. I lied to have her and would do anything to keep her. Though she tries to hate me too, the inexorable pull between us will not be denied, and neither will I. Ooh, so this just sounds like a typical mafia romance, and I am ready and I am seated. I'm actually buddy reading this with Rachel from Raven Haired Reader, and I will leave Rachel's channel linked down below. And I'm really excited because anytime I can read Kennedy Ryan and read Kennedy Ryan with someone else, I'm going to do it because y'all know how I feel about her. Y'all already know the deal. She's one of my favorite authors, definitely in my top 5 favorite authors of all time. So really excited to read this one. And the next book that I have here is Snowflake by Nia Forster. So this book is actually the 6th book in a series, which I did not know at the time, but I think you can read these as standalones. At least that's what I'm doing because at this point I'm already like 7 chapters in and I'm loving it so far. I actually found out about this book because I was on Booktube and I was watching a fellow booktuber and a fellow black booktuber at that. Her name is Charn, and I will leave her channel link down below. Looks like she is new to Booktube, so definitely make sure you guys go over to her channel, show her some love. I found so many gems watching her video, and I'm just so appreciative because I would have never known about this book if it wasn't for her. The story follows 2 characters, one named Cal and one named Asha. Starting with Cal, Cal is actually training to become an Olympic athlete one day, and he is on the track team at his school, and he's really good at what he does. And on the flip side of that, you have his love interest named Asha, and Asha is very quiet, very shy, and very to herself, and she has a lot going on in her personal life. Her and Cal are actually neighbors, but they've never interacted because they are obviously a part of 2 different social circles, and Asha likes to stay to herself. But Cal has always taken note of Asha and has always, like, you know, wondered about her and wondered why she doesn't really like hang out on campus like that, until everybody decides to go home for Thanksgiving break, and Cal and Asha decide to stay behind for different reasons. And while they stay behind in their apartments, there's actually a snowstorm that happens, and the snowstorm ends up knocking out the power. Asha and Cal end up spending time with one another because they're the only ones in this apartment complex and there's no power. And so, like I said, they decide to spend time together, and then one thing leads to another. Things, I'm assuming, get spicy and very romantic, and the story takes off from there. Like I said, I'm only 7 chapters in and not much has happened yet, but things are happening. Things are happening and I'm really excited. So one of the reasons why I jumped on reading this book so quickly is because Cal and Asha actually attend Penn State. And for those of you who do not know, Penn State is actually my alma mater. That's where I went to college. This book is specifically speaking to me, and it's very niche, but in a way that I love because they're both black, they both attend Penn State. What more could I need? Nothing at all. So I'm really happy that I discovered Charn's channel as well as this book, and Nia Forster, because Nia Forster is a Philly native and I did not know that. So I definitely will be checking out more of her books, more specifically the rest of the books that are in the series, is known as the Afterwards series. I'm just really excited all around, and I can't wait to get further into this book and see how Asha and Cal end up. And the last book that I have here is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. So I think I am the last person on earth to read this memoir, okay? I actively avoided it last year in 2022 just because I knew I was going to end up loving this memoir just as much as everyone else. And I've said this before in one of my reading vlogs, but Jack Edwards actually brought up a good point in one of his videos where he talked about how why do we always put off the books that we know are going to be 5 stars instead of just reading them? And that rings true for me every single month. There are so many books that I have on my TBR cart and on my bookshelves that I know are going to be 5 stars, but I just keep putting them off and putting them off for no good reason. So I'm really trying to break that this year and just get to these books because I would rather discover a new favorite like now versus like very late in the year or like the last couple of days of December. So I'm really going to try to break that this year and just like stop procrastinating and get to all of the books that I know I'm going to love. But either way, I am going to read this book in January and I am really excited about it. For those of you who do not know, this memoir is about Jennette McCurdy, and Jennette McCurdy was an actress. Her most notable role was as Sam Puckett on the Nickelodeon show called iCarly, and I loved iCarly. I was like one of the biggest fans of iCarly back in the day, but I actually learned about Jennette McCurdy through Zoe 101. If you know, you know, okay? If you know, you know. I feel like I'm showing my age a little bit, but if you know, you know. I was obsessed with Zoe 101, and she actually had like a guest starring role on that show, and she played a mean girl, and I became obsessed with her after I watched her in Zoe 101. So when I saw her in iCarly, I became even more obsessed because I really loved her in that show. But going back to my point, Jennette McCurdy was a child actress, and once iCarly wrapped up, Jennette actually took a step back from Hollywood in the entertainment industry, and I feel like none of us really knew why until now. And so this memoir is pretty much just speaking to her childhood and her tumultuous and toxic relationship with her mother and how that impacted her as an adult. But I do know that this is of course going to be very heavy and very sad and very triggering in certain regards. I am happy that Jennette was able to come forward and really share her story and speak about her experiences because this is needed, and this is a real raw and gritty account of what it's like to be a child actor, especially when you have a parent that doesn't have your best interest at heart. I do consume my nonfiction books through Audible now just because I feel like it's more beneficial for me and easier for me to digest nonfiction books through audiobooks versus the physical books or ebooks. And I heard that the audiobook for this is fantastic. All right, y'all, those are all of the books that I have planned for the month of January. Now keep in mind there are going to be other books that I did not talk about in this video that I'm sure will get thrown into the mix. Even though I have structure for this month and even though I have different priorities and different obligations that I have to fulfill, I still low-key kind of want to mood read. So that's why I didn't have as many books as I usually do, I feel like, on my TBRs. I tried to leave 1 or 2 spots open for me for mood reads. I typically read 7 to 9 books in a month, give or take. So like I said, I wanted to leave 1 or 2 spots open for those mood reads. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!